So I'm actually quite excited today because I looked on Marvel Horror Facebook and saw that a lot of people don't know about the original Man-Thing film, which I think it's kind of hilarious. I want to recap it for you guys and give you my take on it, basically. Usually I start these with like a little bit of what's going on in my personal life. I think a lot of YouTubers don't do that, but it could be kind of therapeutic. It was therapeutic with the first video, so right now I'm dating again, and that's not going good. There's a reason I guess I'm single at my age, and there's a reason why, women are single at at the same age. So it's a very different experience and pull, and it's something I need to relearn. So that's basically what's going on. I don't like it, honestly. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Man-Thing movie. Gonna recap it, and then I'll tell you what I thought about it, and I'll tell you what I know too, because I listened to the director commentary. So there might be a little bit of stuff that I know more than some of you guys, especially those who didn't even know about the film. So the movie opens with a shot of an abandoned and eerie swamp. The narrator explains that the spirit of the swamp resides in these waters. He goes on to say that the swamp wasn't always like this. It was once full of life and beauty until the corporate greed transformed it. He ends this monologue with a warning about retribution. One fateful night, a couple ventures into the swamp during a party. Their escape from the party takes an unexpected turn when a creature emerges from the shadows and attacks the man, instantly killing him and pulling him into the shadows. And that's kind of our introduction to this version of the Man-Thing. I watched this as a child, so I was okay with it, but as a fan, I am kind of pissed off that that's our Man-Thing, In the morning, the newly appointed sheriff, Kyle Williams, makes his way into the bywaters and introduces himself to his partner, Eric Fraser. Eric gives Kyle a discerning look and tells him he expected someone more experienced. He then explains his troubles with all the missing persons. He tells Kyle that it started with Ted Salas, an Indian medicine man, and the previous sheriff went insane trying to solve the case before eventually disappearing. Fraser suspects Ted and Renee Larksquit, a local troublemaker, in the string of kidnappings, but the police haven't been able to locate either of them. So something I got from the director's commentary, the whole kind of dynamic with the sheriff coming in and being kind of hard-ass, like a Clint Eastwood type, was not in the original script and was changed right before shooting. And the original script had him be a much more timid character, a much more shy character, and that's what that actor was hired for, because he's known for doing those kind of shy, timid characters, and he can do that really well. But then the script was changed into this tough Clint Eastwood type of sheriff who comes into the small town and he takes no shit from these backwards redneck kind of people. Are they redneck? Swampneck? Greenneck? I don't know. Kyle and Fraser are then called in by the coroner, Val, to have a look at Billy, the boy who was killed by the monster last night. The body has plants growing out of it, which strikes Kyle as particular. Before Kyle can make sense of the situation, Shiz, a local oil tycoon, asks him for help. Kyle arrives at the site to find a couple of protesters interrupting Shiz's business. Kyle disperses them, but not before taking their leader, Terry Richards, into custody. So, two things on casting. If I'm not mistaken, the coroner is actually the director, and we know that Terry Richards is actually the same actress. I can't think of her name right now. The same actress who plays Hellcat in that Marvel Netflix show, Jessica Jones. Richards explains that Shiz is desecrating sacred Indian land that doesn't belong to him. Moreover, the tribe didn't receive any of the money Shiz offered to buy the land. Their leader, Ted Salas, took the money and ran. After hearing her story, Kyle lets Terry go without charging her. Here's another thing the director hated. Terry is this teacher and Kyle is this police officer, and they're both the stars, and you can obviously see that they're, both gonna get together or whatever, and the director hated that. And I'll tell you what the director's ending was at the end of my recap. In the morning, Kyle goes to the local diner and meets the townspeople, including Plooge, the brothers, and Pete Horn, who warns him about the monster and suggests he'll need help if he intends to go against it. Kyle is summoned by Schiss once again, who had his equipment vandalized. While Kyle takes some pictures for his investigation, Schiss tells him he has his suspicions about Larquette and Pete Horn. As night falls and Kyle is driving through the swamp, he has his first encounter with Renee Larquette, who warns him about the danger of the swamp and tells him to go home before disappearing into the mist again. At the same time, someone is terrorizing the man posted at Schiss' oil site. After playing with its food, the monster effortlessly kills one of the guards. Yeah, I think it was directed good. I think the direction is good. It does build kind of suspense and the horror is good. I think maybe there's just not enough. There's not enough horror. There's not enough suspense. There's not enough story. Back at the swamp, Kyle comes across the rotting body of the old sheriff. He takes it to the coroner, who rules out a gator attack as the cause of death. He then called by Fraser about the death in the oil field and goes to investigate. Upon arrival, he comes across something horrifying, as one of the bodies has an entire branch growing out of it. Val explains that he's had similar instances of missing persons' body turning up with plants growing out of them. Schiss thinks Renee is responsible and sends his goons Jake and the Outback brothers to find and kill him. Kyle also decides to track down Renee along with Fraser for his own investigation into the matter. Unfortunately, their motorboat breaks down in the middle of the swamp, leaving them to roll for themselves. Fraser suggests going to Plooge's place to fetch some candles for the ride back home. Meanwhile, the Outback brothers lose each other in the heavy mist of the swamp as they hunt for Larquette. The monster comes for Wayne, first terrorizing him before finally impaling him with one of its branches. Rodney comes back looking for his brother before eventually falling victim to the monster as well. On the other side, Kyle and Fraser arrive at Plooge's only to find the place locked and Plooge missing. Kyle decides to leave Fraser there and goes on alone to look for Renee. Left behind, Fraser spots a silhouette in the distance that looks like Plooge and begins chasing after it. I'd like to also say at this point the director said that the swamp they built was toxic. As Kyle continues his search, he falls into a trap set up by Renee. The man emerges from the shadows and tells Kyle he's joining the hunt. Renee then confesses everything. He was the one who sold the land to Schiss, thinking the money would give his people a chance at a better life. However, the tribe's leader, Ted Salas, opposed the sale. Renee believes Ted didn't disappear but was murdered, and the guardian of the swamp won't stop until Schiss stops defiling the dark waters where he set up his oil rig. While Renee is occupied, Kyle manages to free himself. So we know, at least anyone who's read the Man-Thing comics knows, that Ted Salas becomes the Man-Thing through his super soldier experiment, his version of it, and it fuses with the swamp. Since then, there have been multiple different explanations. One I recently read is that the wizard Darkim, I think that's how it's pronounced, but one of the wizards that is friends with the Man-Thing claims that Man-Thing was created by the swamp to protect against the nexus of realities, and the swamp itself is alive and magical. It's mixed with sorcery. But there's also the claim that the nexus of reality is what created the Man-Thing, and the Man-Thing is the guardian of the nexus of reality. So there's that. And then there's the most recent one, which is really stupid, is that Satan created the Man-Thing, which I think is stupid. I'm not going to go into that. Don't read those comics. Really dumb. Anyways, as he gets his bearings, he comes across Fraser, who has already fallen into the clutches of the monster. Before Kyle can help his deputy However, he's attacked from behind by Renee and left unconscious. When Kyle regains consciousness, Fraser is already dead and Plugge is photographing the scene. Plugge reveals that he's been hunting the monster for ages and invites Kyle to see the pictures. When he develops them at his place, at Plugge's, Kyle looks at the monster in disbelief and asks Plugge to pack up and never return to the swamp. In the morning, Kyle seeks Terry's help to meet with Pete, as he believes the old man can assist him. However, the conversation leads to a dead end as Pete warns him of the incoming calamity. Later, Kyle shares an intimate moment with Terry, whom he has developed feelings for. They are interrupted by Schiss and Kyle confronts him. After Kyle threatens to call the FBI on his operation, Schiss says he'll have him removed. Schiss then vows to put an end to everything by killing Renee that night. I want to add here that what I said about the original script, I believe there was some used for the comic book prequel, but don't quote me on that. But there is a comic book prequel, and I think it's really good. I think it's much better, and if they went with that kind of more environment, it'd be much more of a horror film. But there is a comic book prequel, and it seems to be more in line with what the director's original vision was and what the original script was. Meanwhile, Pete heads into the swamp to stop the Man-Thing from causing further harm by sacrificing his own life. Kyle says one final goodbye to Terry and joins in on the action as the film heads towards its climax. As Pete intends, the Man-Thing comes for him, but it doesn't intend to stop just with his life. Schiss and his son Jake continue to search for Renee in the swamp. They come across Plugge, who is taking pictures, and Schiss doesn't hesitate to shoot him. Afterward, Jake becomes separated from his father and falls victim to Renee. I want to say also that Schiss and his son are actual father and son. So it's really cool that the director brought that dynamic to the film. Back at the sheriff's office, Terry receives a call from the coroner, who reveals that the previous sheriff died from a gunshot wound. Having seemingly cracked the case, Terry decides to go after Kyle. As the two meet, they begin piecing together the puzzle. Schiff killed Ted Sallis, forcefully acquired the land. He then went after the previous sheriff, who knew about the murder. The only one who might know more is Renee, who is in the dark waters. Terry takes the lead as our heroes decide to put an end to the Man-Thing's rampage once and for all. In the final standoff at the oil rig, Renee decides to make amends by blowing up the rig. He's held off by Schiss, and soon Terry and Kyle join in the fight. Before Schiss can do more harm, he is brutally killed by the Man-Thing, which then turns his attention to chasing Terry and Kyle. However, when Renee blows up the rig, the Man-Thing screeches in retribution before finally becoming part of the swamp once again. So the cliff notes today is, I know this movie was based off a couple issues of the Man-Thing, possibly starting from issue 16, maybe before, and then there was this kind of background story of, the oil drilling into the swamp, and you got the hippies, and you got the corporate, and they're fighting each other, and it was a big part. It was in the background mostly until demons came out and the Man-Thing had to fight. But I don't think it really completely resolves, because I remember it was in Annual where Schiss' wife comes back and she hates the Man-Thing and she, captures him. So there's that. So the original ending for this Man-Thing film was that everyone dies. Man-Thing wins. He's the hero, he seems like the monster in the beginning, and then it's supposed to be subverted at some point that Ted Sallis didn't do anything wrong. It was thought that Ted Sallis was originally greedy Native American who took money from Schiss and ran off and he sold the land. But then it's discovered at the end that actually that didn't happen and he was totally against it. Ted Sallis was killed for it, and the swamp turned him into the Man-Thing. Hey gang, this is the creator of Marvel Horror Fan Group and this YouTube channel. I wanted to come out here and say that I started a Patreon to kind of help my dream come true, and I would really love it if you guys can donate, I guess. But, I put it's the lowest donation, it's $3, and the benefits, I kind of put that you'll have your credit at the end of the video, and you'll kind of help me make suggestions for the next script. Like, if you make a suggestion, who would win versus Dr. Druid and Doctor Strange, then that would be my next script, basically. But I'd also like to say that you don't need to be a Patreon to do that. If you're just a fan and you comment, you give me a thumbs up or whatever. I don't even know how to look at that stuff. But if you just comment, maybe the next video should be this, I'd probably just do that anyways. You don't need to be a Patreon, but it would help me kind of make this dream come true. Taking a step back from my job right now, due to mental health in general. And I kind of have some other ideas. My brother has a 3D printer, and I was kind of talking to him about what I'm doing now, starting this YouTube channel. And he said that he'd be willing to print out like little Marvel Horror sculptures, maybe like the size of your palm, or maybe like finger sculptures of like Man-Thing, Werewolf by Night, the Frankenstein's monster and stuff like that as rewards for Patreon. So that's not on the Patreon yet because I want to start this one step at a time. I don't have ads on my videos. I don't have any sponsors, I just did 2 videos. I'm starting a third one. I'm starting a Patreon. So let me know what you think. Feel free to give me any suggestions for the next video. Let me know what you think about the Patreon. I'd really love help because I still got to pay my bills. Even though I'm taking a step back from work, I still got to pay my bills, which sucks, but this is kind of bringing some joy into my life. Probably joy I haven't had in a long time, as depressing as that sounds. So thanks for listening, guys. Have a good one. Okay, let's start on the prequel comics, so we're going to have a lot of guest stars here. Basically, the story is about Nathan Mayer, an agent from Lansdale Insurance who's come to Louisiana to check on the vandalism reports about Schiff's construction swamp site. He meets with Schiff, who tells Anthony about the security guard who has been hospitalized in the vandalism. Anthony goes to the site expecting more than just destruction, but is still shocked at the natural disaster that's become the construction site. Machinery up in the trees, roots that grown overnight covering everything. Anthony finds a Man-Thing totem and proceeds to head to the hospital to show the hospitalized security guard. The guard freaks out as veins explode out of his eyes, mouth, and veins. Issue 2 starts. Anthony continues the investigation, and this is where we meet our second film character, the coroner, Val. Val, who, is also the director of the film. Val considers the death cardiac arrest, even though the body had living plants growing inside him. Due to the mayor of the town, the coroner was purposely being misleading, and probably he was bad at his job. Or the idea could be that none of this affects him anymore. He's kind of desensitized from all this death by the Man-Thing. If we compare the film coroner with the comic book, I would say that he's an honest guy, so it kind of felt out of character when I read him covering up the death of the security guard. The mayor is unhappy about Anthony's investigation, and he tells him, but Anthony doesn't seem to care. He doesn't even seem to be affected by the events transpiring, like the construction site being overwhelmed by nature, the security guard being killed like that. He just kind of seems to want to continue the investigation and find answers. We get our third guest with Pete Horn, who explains the Man-Thing totem is actually a protection talisman against the dark water spirit, Mantoke. And just to be clear, I had to look up how this is pronounced because it's not spelled how you think it'd be spelled. But supposedly Google says it's pronounced Mantoke. Google Translation says it's pronounced Mantoke. Pete Horn explains that the construction is being done on sacred Native American land, and the ancestors are not happy about it. Anthony agrees to talk to the chief, Ted Salas, and Pete Horn points him into the swamp. In the swamp, Anthony runs into Mike Pluge's place, and this is our fourth guest, Mike Pluge, who I don't think I mentioned earlier. His name is based off one of the writers for The Man-Thing. He's a comic book writer. I think he's a comic book artist as well. Mike Pluge shows him pictures of the Man-Thing, similar to how he shows the new sheriff in the film. Later, he goes to see the now dead security guard's wife, the wife is not dead. The security guard is dead, and Anthony goes to see the wife, who's being consoled by the Native American Renee, and Renee is another guest from the film. So they're building all these connections. I think on the way to the wife, he did run into those redneck Outback brothers. Like, they're so... Honestly, I think they could be cut from the film and the comic altogether. I think they were just antagonists added for no reason, but it's kind of one of those horror tropes, you know? You always have like a jock type or some shit for no reason. Who's being an asshole. Like, he's being overly an asshole for no reason, too. And that's what these Outback brothers are. After Anthony is done with the conversation, he goes into the swamp one more time and runs into Ted Salas, who is the Man-Thing. The comic book ends with Anthony denying Schiff's claim, but putting a wrongful death claim for the security guard's wife so she can get some money out of it. Let's see. My thoughts on it is I highly recommend these comics. I think they add to the film after rereading these issues. So there's no official statement on it, but I do believe that these comics are what the original script was. And these comic books were just rewritten in a way to make them a prequel because a lot of the same events kind of happen. So in the film, we got the new guy being the sheriff. In this, we got the new guy being the insurance agent coming into town. And then a lot of the similar events happen. So the insurance agent has to do his investigation, right? And he goes to see all the same people that are shown in the film. And honestly, the interactions are the same, with the brothers being an asshole to him, with Pluge showing him pictures, you know. And the director has spoken about the original character being this timid kind of guy, and that's what this insurance agent gives off. Some things that don't really align is the director claimed in the commentary that the original script had the new guy, so I'm talking about the sheriff and the insurance agent here. He had some kind of pass attached to this town, and he had to come, you know, because it was his job. So in the film, he had to come because he was a sheriff. In the comic book, he had to come because he was an insurance agent. And in the original script, he wasn't a sheriff. So that also kind of leads towards me thinking that he could have originally been an insurance agent, because who else would be, you know, forced to come back into this, Green Neck town, this little Green Neck Huckbuck town. There was also a subplot originally, and this is what the director said about an abusive father. This wasn't in the comic or the film. That was taken out because of the Incredible Hulk that came out at the same time or right before this film had a similar subplot where the father was abusive and, you know, he turns into a green giant rage monster. And I guess that's what they kind of saw the Man-Thing as, even though Man-Thing and Hulk are two totally different characters. I think I would have loved to see that original script and subplot, honestly. And the director also said that originally there wasn't that beginning sex scene. That was just added. I think he said because in other regions of the country, they want to see sex and nudity, so they add that for those audience, not necessarily American audience, but I think American audience love that shit too. Like, I don't think they're not gonna say no. Or you guys can rewind that. You guys can go back to that scene. I'm pretty sure everyone appreciates I left that in. Personally, both the comics and the film have their flaws. You guys can let me know what you think. I would say I do enjoy the comics a little bit more, but I'm a comic book guy. But I still don't hate the film. I can enjoy it more than... people are going to hate me for this, but I enjoy it more than Eternals. I can enjoy it more than the MCU Eternals film. So, before I end this video, I just want to say thank you guys for watching. I know you can find a bunch of these recaps online, but I wanted to change it by adding the prequel comic book. I don't think a lot of people have talked about the prequel comic. Now that I think about it, I don't think anyone's talked about the prequel comic. I also want to thank you guys because it says I've been getting at least 1 view a day on my videos and my previous video about Blazing Skull, so that feels really good. 1 view a day, I might not be getting like 1 billion views or something like that, but I think 1 view a day in this YouTube media is a lot because there's so much other stuff out there that you guys could be watching, and you guys are tuning in to this hour-long rant of like comics and horror comics and just me throwing out my opinions. I really don't know how any of this works. I don't know how to put ads. I don't know if I'll ever get the chance to put ads. When do I become a legit, YouTuber? But if you want to support me, I have a Patreon. And if you can't do that, I'd really love it if you guys comment or thumbs up. Comment, thumbs up. You can thumbs me down too. I hear that is okay as well. It just means that you guys are interacting with the video, and it's either way it's a plus. But yeah, please comment, the usual YouTube bullshit, trying to talk to me. Otherwise, let me know what you want next. If you enjoyed this format, I might do more video recaps and reviews. There's a good amount of horror films related to Marvel, and I think a bunch would surprise you guys. I also have a script recapping Ghost Rider comics, so I might do that one next, even though I only recap each issue in one sentence. Each issue in one sentence. I might work on it some more. We'll see. These videos do take quite a while to produce. If you notice, I do the 3D animation, I do the green screen, and then I don't want to leave the green screen blank or leave you guys hanging, so I like to put pictures and videos related to everything that I'm talking about, so it kind of contextualizes my words a lot better. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for watching.